Pennsylvania has officially certified the results of the 2020 election. And now it would seem that any remaining possibility that Donald Trump could win through an electoral trick shot, it's the odds are now astronomical. I would put it at like winning the lottery. Hey, people do win the lottery, but at this point, I've said time and time again from the beginning, it really did seem like we were heading towards a Joe Biden victory. And a lot of Trump supporters didn't like that I was saying that. Well, Pennsylvania is certified. Donald Trump's path to victory through the certification route was to stop certification to prevent Joe Biden from getting to 270 votes. It actually still is entirely possible. You could theoretically have Trump try and go after hard blue states or even, states that lean heavily blue, try and jam up certification there, but it just seems entirely unlikely. The advantage Trump had with the swing states was that if the votes were close enough where you can make an argument like 100,000 votes here shouldn't be counted because of this unconstitutional reason, you could flip up to 100,000 votes. So Trump being down by like 80K in Pennsylvania meant that if he said, 680,000 are bad, you could flip the state. But if you go to a place like New Jersey, where it's like 2-1 Democrat, the judges are going to be like, even if you win this suit, you will not change the results of this election. Therefore, they're going to ignore it. So this is it. I'm actually surprised. I didn't realize Pennsylvania was going to certify this soon. We had a ton of news about Michigan. And my understanding, based on some of the people involved in current litigation, is that this was just rammed through relatively quickly. Well, at least in response to the fact that there are still lawsuits pending and there's still litigation moving forward, which could change the outcome. So I'll put it this way. Will Trump win? In my opinion, no. I just think it is overwhelming that Trump's path to victory in this regard is extremely slim. That being said, extremely slim does not mean zero. And I think it's fair to point out there are a lot of people saying Hillary can still win. Here's how. And it's like, dude, we're at that point where I'll put it this way. I want Trump to make sure he pushes forward. I want to see if he's got any evidence, if these lawsuits come out. I'm ready and waiting. But as of right now, this was the big play. Block Michigan, block Pennsylvania, block Georgia or Nevada or Arizona or something like that. And then you've got the constitutional trick shot. But it doesn't seem to have worked out that way. Some people are saying on the right that certifications are meaningless if they can present evidence of fraud. They can decertify or things like that. That's why I'm saying, you know what, man, I wouldn't put it past Trump. Over on the hard Trump supporter side, they're saying Trump still got this executive order on his side, where he basically laid it out in 2018, where he said if there's foreign election interference, there can be some pretty serious interventions. Now, Trump supporters are holding out that Trump will pull a last minute Trump card, using this executive order to find a way to actually win. The executive order says that no later than 45 days after an election. It has certainly not been 45 days, so there still is time left for Trump to theoretically pull some executive order maneuver. I just don't think it's likely, dude. I mean, look, if you want to just believe Trump is still going to win, by all means, you're free to do so. I haven't been on that boat since, the first week after the 7th. And I got a lot of flack for it. And, well, that's just the way it is. During Occupy Wall Street, the Occupy people loved me, and then a bunch of them now hate me because I've been telling the truth about what's going on with Donald Trump. And this is the truth. The odds against Trump now are astronomical. I just don't see it. So let's read the story from the New York Times. They say, Pennsylvania certifies its election results, making Biden's victory official. The state of Pennsylvania certified its election results on Tuesday as Governor Tom Wolf signed off on the slate of 20 electors and solidified President-elect Joe Biden's victory in the state where he was born, one of the most hotly contested prizes of the election. The move in Pennsylvania, a state Mr. Biden won by more than 80,000 votes, follows the certification of the results in Michigan on Monday and Georgia on Friday. All three were states that President Trump won in 2016 and Mr. Biden flipped. With multiple battleground states that Mr. Biden won now having certified their results, the flailing efforts by Mr. Trump and his allies to subvert the election and overturn the votes of millions of Americans is nearing its end. Let me just interject there with that ridiculously framed paragraph. Trump's and his allies' flailing effort to subvert the election. Okay. Trump's legal challenges to the election seem to be nearing their end. That's news reporting. If I were to say Trump's efforts to stop the steal and prevent fraudulent votes from stealing the election. That would be right framing. If I were to say a flailing effort by Trump and his allies to subvert the election, that would be left framing. If I were to say the effort by Donald Trump and his allies to challenge the results, citing voter fraud, seemed to be coming to an end. I'm not going to assert what is or isn't. We haven't proven anything or disproven anything. We just, what did Trump, what's happened so far? Donald Trump filed legal challenges saying that there were improper guidelines were not followed improperly, that some ballots should be disqualified. So it's really just about Trump's legal efforts to challenge the results are nearing an end, or to challenge the tallies, the tabulations as they stand. They say in Pennsylvania, that's the New York Times for you, by the way. In Pennsylvania, the Trump campaign and Republican allies had tried to halt the certification for weeks through a flurry of litigation, yet was constantly rebuffed by judges who found the effort lacked any evidence of fraud. You see, come on. Can you do your jobs? This is why I hate media. The Trump campaign lawsuits did not cite fraud. And the leftists are like, look, Trump's even saying there's no fraud in these cases. And then the New York Times says the efforts lacked evidence of fraud. What are you talking about? New York Times, did you even read the complaints? The most powerful principal complaint from the Trump campaign was that they didn't have observers, that their observers were removed in Pennsylvania and in Michigan. That was their complaint, that this effectively invalidated votes. A state court in Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth Court, said that the election code does not specify the distance by which someone can observe. I think that was extreme legalizing of what the law is supposed to do. Well, it doesn't say how close you got to be, so you can be 50 feet away. No, an observer, any reasonable person to say you're supposed to be sitting there saying, that is for Biden, that is for Trump. Okay, I see what you're doing there. Those votes make sense. If you got someone who's 6 feet away, they're going to be like, this one's for Biden. Let me see. I can't see how. Too bad. That's ridiculous. New York Times, I can't stand the media anymore. When you read this stuff, do you notice the ridiculous framing? I'm not even saying that it should be right biased. I'm saying just stop pumping in your propaganda. They say the campaign had most recently asked the federal Third Circuit Court of Appeals to block certification in Pennsylvania. But some legal experts have argued that if Pennsylvania officially certified its results before the court made a decision, the case would be considered moot. And it now will be. Can Trump even go to the Supreme Court calling for an injunction on certification? No. That's it. He'll have to file a new case. Maybe. Trump wanted to. Maybe they wanted to file a new case. I'll tell you this. You know, it really does feel like the Trump campaign is buying time for something. Maybe I don't know. Look, if Trump really thought he was going to lose, that's why he's trying to win. He definitely is. If Trump really thought he was going to lose, he would just start running through a whole bunch of crazy executive orders. He wouldn't be trying this hard and spending this much money. He is. But then I see these suits and I'm kind of like, are they buying time for something? Because they got some suits where I'm just like, you went to court over this? What's the issue? And I've thought maybe they're buying time to just keep Trump in the race by any means necessary up until some date for some reason. Maybe December 8th, safe harbor. But with the certifications coming in, it just feels like, look, unless there's some secret maneuver I don't know about, and maybe that's true, it doesn't seem likely. And I'll also say, I really doubt there's some secret maneuver because this stuff just never really happens. You know, it's just, Occam's razor would suggest Trump is fighting tooth and nail to win this, and he's not. And he's not. They say, Governor Wolf, in announcing the certification, praised the election workers in his state who had faced harsh criticism and harassment as the president continued his effort to subvert the election. Subvert the election. Jeez, man. Yes. You want to argue that left perspective, New York Times? This is why the New York Times is trash. They don't tell you what literally happened. They tell you what they want you to think. So it'd be like, look, I mean, it's there in front of you, okay? Donald Trump filed a legal challenge. That's it. That's all that happened. And it looks like he's losing his legal challenge. That's it. That's all that happened. Quote, I want to thank the election officials who have administered a fair and free election during an incredibly challenging time in our Commonwealth and country's history, Mr. Wolf said in a statement on Twitter. Our election workers have been under constant attack, and they have performed admirably and honorably. Multiple counties across Pennsylvania had certified their results on Monday amid some scattered efforts by local Republicans to halt the process. In Allegheny County, the second largest county in the state, and home to Pittsburgh, the board voted 2-1 to certify the results. with Sam DeMarco, the lone Republican member, voting against. Mr. DeMarco said his vote was an attempt to spur action in the state capitol to make changes to the state's voting laws, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette reported. In Luzerne County, which Mr. Trump won by more than 14,000 votes, the board certified the results in a 3-2 vote. Again, Democratic members of the board voting to certify and the 2 Republicans voting against. The state had been specifically targeted by Giuliani, former mayor of New York, who repeated, they say, baseless allegations of widespread fraud. Shortly after the election, Mr. Giuliani delivered a now infamous news conference at Four Seasons Total Landscaping in northeastern Philadelphia, falsely declaring that the city's election had been marred by fraud and obstruction. Numerous judges would later reject those claims in court. I do not believe that is true. The New York Times just doesn't even do their job anymore. This seems to be written by someone who was like hanging out in the coffee room, like in like the snack room at the New York Times, where he overheard people talking about this. The lawsuits they filed were about impropriety, not about fraud. So I'll tell you this. Giuliani has been saying quite a bit there's fraud. Sidney Powell certainly saying there's fraud, but they're not arguing fraud in court. According to a source that Breitbart spoke with, they distanced themselves, or they issued a statement saying, I'll be more specific, Giuliani and Jenna Ellis on Trump's legal team issued a statement saying that Sidney Powell was working on her own and not with the Trump campaign. According to Breitbart, who, whether you believe their source or not, they said it was because the Trump campaign felt like the things Sidney Powell was saying were outside of the scope of what they could prove in court. In which case, when you claim all of this fraud and you don't think you have the evidence or can prove it in court, don't be surprised when they don't try to actually present it in court. More importantly, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and you're not going to be able to investigate and find evidence in 2.5 weeks. That's the crazy thing about this, is that we've seen smoke. We've actually seen fire, okay? We have evidence. We have sworn affidavits. Is it widespread enough to have actually caused structural damage to the election? We need an investigation. So at this point, I would just like to give a round of applause to the FBI for quickly and decisively investigating Bubba Wallace's pull rope in his garage and doing literally nothing to investigate sworn statements from multiple people alleging similar things. That's called evidence and corroboration. Thanks, FBI. That's what they do, huh? No, come on. We live in a plutocracy. It's government for the rich, by the rich, and not the working class people. And you can understand why they did not like Donald Trump. My favorite thing is all of like the early 20-somethings who are like, I'm going to go vote for Joe Biden, because they have no idea what the past 10 years were like, notably the first half with Obama and with Joe Biden, and just like the absolute trash things that administration had done. But I look forward to seeing what these, like socialist, youthful lefties say about, the drone bombings and the military excursions and things like that. That's going to be fun, isn't it? I wonder how many of these late 20s progressives are going to start following my content now that I continue my ragging on Biden and the Obama administration for the horrible things they've been doing and have done. Yeah, all of the progressives now are going to be like, you know what? Tim's not that bad. He is ragging on Biden, huh? Well, here we go. Which states have certified so far? This is the pending actual vote tally for president, and Donald Trump is still leading. This doesn't matter, though. Okay, check it out. We know what the states have concluded. They're now going through the certification process. Joe Biden is projected to have 306 electoral votes. So far, 85 electoral votes have been certified for Joe Biden, but not a single vote has yet to be cast. So we'll see. You know what, man? I'm seeing these forum posts where they're like, Trump's executive order and the secret evidence and the Kraken and all stuff. It's coming. Don't give up. Okay, listen. I understand why the diehard Trump supporters are saying this. You literally have to. When we're talking about morale boosting and trying to keep people engaged and active, you need morale. I look at it this way. We got a political battlefield, okay? And the left and the Democrats are marching forward and they have routed the right. Well, the right needs to hold ranks. So they're saying, keep moving, keep marching, don't back down. And that's basically what they're trying to do. If someone like me comes along and I'm sitting there and I got like a straw in my mouth and my feet's up and I'm like, oh, these guys done lost, they're going to be like, shut your mouth. It's bad for morale. So I get it. Just don't expect to be able to come to my channel and get a Trump cheerleader channel. It was never going to be that. It's not that now, and it will never be. I like Trump. I think he's better than Joe Biden. I voted for him, and I voted for the other Republicans in my district and in my state. But it's because, the left has gone absolutely insane. The Democrats have gone crazy. And I think Hotep Jesus, who was on the IRL podcast last Friday, put it best when I was like, what do you think about Republicans? He's like, I don't know that they do anything for me to actually care about. And I'm like, that's it, dude. The Republicans are doing nothing. They're doing nothing good. They're doing nothing bad. The good they do is like a tiny fraction. It's like they complain about big tech and then do nothing. The Democrats are nuts. They're doing tons of stuff, and it's all just absolutely insane. I don't know what's going to happen. All right, I don't. And I can say it a million times. Although people like to snip out of context clips where I'm like, this is what would happen if X, right? This might happen and this might happen. Look, I think, like I've said, since they called it for Biden, I said it's extremely likely it's going to be Joe Biden. The machine is powerful. When I ask, can Donald Trump win? I'm not asking, can Donald Trump find a way to nullify votes? No. Donald Trump is an individual going up against the establishment machine for all it's worth. And that has more to do with the machine outside the election than it does within the election. When I say, can Donald Trump win? I'm not saying, can Donald Trump find votes? I'm saying, can Donald Trump defeat the crony corporate establishment? He pulled it off in 2016, and it was slim. Now, the Electoral College victory was great, but in certain states, he won by only like 80,000 or so votes between several states. It was like 0.2% in one state. I think it was Michigan. It was slim. Hillary Clinton could have won that, but people really hate Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump narrowly bested the establishment machine. The rhinos and dinos holding hands behind our backs. Lindsey Graham and Kamala Harris fist bumping, and he pats her on the back. That's right. Congratulations, Kamala Harris. But now I'm going to go on TV and claim Donald Trump should fight tooth and nail and never give up. Thanks, Lindsey Graham. That's the Republican establishment. They don't care about you, and neither do the Democrats. Donald Trump put up a heck of a fight, but I wonder if he could defeat them. They have been throwing everything in his face. And what you got to understand, too, is that going back past several years with Donald Trump facing impeachment and Ukraine-gate, all this stuff, Ukraine-gate, impeachment, and Russia-gate, they were keeping him off base. And Trump still managed to do a pretty good job helping this country. But these people don't care about this country. They care about their pocketbooks. That's why they love free trade. That's why they love this vaccine. You know why? You pass a bill where you're like, we're going to expedite production. We got Operation Warp Speed. What does that signal to all the wealthy elites and people who work in Congress who for some reason are millionaires? Buy more stock. It's being reported that Kelly Loeffler in Georgia, when COVID hit, she had her, advisor, whatever, go through her portfolio and start buying up all of these big box stores and whatever. And it's like, dude, when it comes to someone like Loeffler, they try to drag her as personally profiting, and she did, but people have wealth management. The point is, the rich get richer, the poor get poor, and I don't care if they're a Republican, and I don't care if they're a Democrat. The Democrats get money when they say, we need everyone to take this vaccine, and we're going to offer up a $2 billion guaranteed contract to Big Pharma. And then what do? Well, they shuffle their portfolios around and buy into Pfizer because they know Pfizer is going to be putting out a vaccine, and Moderna and these other companies. They're like, well, they're going to put out a vaccine. The government's going to be paying for it. Let's buy up. You know what that means? It means your tax dollars, your wealth being transferred to big pharmaceuticals while the governors lock you down and send all of your small business and all of your ownership gets destroyed and gets sent to the big box stores and the big corporate machine. And you know what? I feel for every hardworking American who is trying to resist and push back. The political establishment doesn't care about you. They never did. They just want to line their pockets with gold. You see, when you're rich, you don't got to worry about poor people stuff. You have the ability to snap your finger and say, look, I got $1 million chilling over there. I don't care what I do with it. Move it over to that big pharma company and bam. Somebody hit me up and they said, with Joe Biden coming in, Palantir, the data analytics tracking and, as some would say, spying company, is going to get some sweet, sweet government contracts. You best buy up Palantir stock. Yeah, Palantir. Big data analysis, tracking, all that stuff. Oh, no. But it's okay. They're okay now. It's Peter Thiel's company. He's all right, right? He was in favor of the right and hated the PC stuff. And, so it's all good. And they're helping with COVID. Yeah. So someone hit me up and said it's going to skyrocket because if Joe Biden gets in, he's going to dump his contracts into these big spyware companies or these big surveillance companies. And I'm not buying any of that stuff. That's not for me. I don't want to play that game. But I know some people who did, and Palantir skyrocketed. When Joe Biden gets in, I tell you what, you are going to make mad cash when you invest in companies like Amazon. You buy that Amazon stock and Google stock because he said lockdown. No, what he really said was, I trust the science. And his advisor, Osterholm, said lockdown. Where are people going to shop? Amazon, Walmart, Target. So I think Walmart's private, but you know what you want to invest in. Big pharmaceuticals. And so here's what happens. As the poor, the middle class, the working class see their businesses flattened, their ownership evaporate, and they struggle to get by on scraps. The people who have been sitting on massive wealth can easily put it into these big stores and then get all that money. I hope you're ready for the American oligopoly because this is what's happening. Check the charts. Wealth inequality is going to be worse than anyone has ever seen. And I tell you this, you want to know why that's a problem? Wealth inequality leads to destabilization of societies. You cannot have oligarchs, especially in America, for increasingly becoming wealthy while the poor suffer because the left will revolt and the right will revolt. And I tell you this, we might get to a point where we see more of this Boogaloo BLM handshake stuff going on. But you might actually see Trump supporters start supporting Antifa. No joke. I know. You're going to say, what? Get out of here. The right hates Antifa. I'll tell you this. When they crush your small business, when they strip away everything you own, and you are demanding your right to survive, there's eventually someone's going to say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And then what? Well, Antifa thinks the government's fascists. The Trump supporters and conservatives just want to get by. I think we're going to see riots across the board. I'll see how it plays out. Certification is here, and it's looking like a Joe Biden presidency, and that means strife, pain, and suffering. I'm sorry, it just does. Maybe the vaccine works tremendously, and then they release the lockdowns, but it's already starting to get worse. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on a different YouTube channel. Do this. Go to your address bar and type in youtube.com/Timcast and press enter. If you're still listening to this video, it's because you didn't do it. And some of you might think same channel, this channel is Timcast. This is not Timcast, okay? I have multiple channels, and for some reason, YouTube just says this one is Timcast. So try again. Go to the address bar, type in youtube.com/Timcast, press enter, and you will see different content. I will see you there at 4 p.m. Thanks for hanging out.